I think the best thing to do, and don't think about it too hard, let's get rid of all the people that made the game. Danny, since we're in Chicago, are you getting very excited for the Bear season 3? Because the trailer just dropped, and
yeah.
I know that we there's something like, I do not know if, like, the Bear obviously is a huge hit, like, everywhere, right? Like it is, but I'm like, it feels like people that are live in Chicago, especially people that like the food scene of Chicago a lot, and like that's part of the reason we like living here. Really love this show, and like, you know, Carmi sightings have been happening since it's been
since its
filming,
inception,
and you know what? It is a Chicago show because there's a lot of yelling and not a lot of communication. And that's
very
Chicago,
reflective
baby.
of our pod sometimes too, I'd say. I am very excited. I'm really upset that no one responded to my trailer drop yesterday. I'm like, fuck you guys, man. But I am super excited. It looks like they're...
I'm sorry, did you try to make famous people talk to you? Is that what you're upset about?
No.
Did you like tag
in
like
the group chat? In the group chat,
the show?
I dropped the trailer in the group chat.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever.
I mean,
whatever.
you know me. I'm not keeping up.
Whatever. Yeah, man, I'm excited. I think they do like a lot of the Chicago food stuff really well. They cleaned up some of like the over the top things from season 1 and season 2, as far as like the references to like, oh, it's
In
really
season
dangerous
2.
here. It's like, no, it's not. Shut up. But everything else is great. Some of like the cultural references are like, I'm like, oh my god, these are deep cuts. Sometimes like they're really doing their homework here. And yeah, I'm just ready for chaos and anxiety, and I'm looking forward to all the Sid Carm shippers to die. Because
I'm sorry. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Because I don't want that they are friends, and it's a work. I understand that there's a little bit of a spark there because they naturally work well together, kind of. But this is don't know.
Yeah,
no, I think it'd be such
there's
a cliche to have them go there.
I think, Danny, this is the thing about which way it goes for me, is it could go the way then they like somehow figure it out together.
Sure.
Like, that's fine. It's fine because I like both of the characters and I would be fine with it. But I don't ultimately think it's maybe like what the show has been so far about, which feels like it's about real relationships that happen when you're trying to achieve something.
Yeah.
In like with your coworkers, because that's effectively the show is. We're a business trying to be the best one, but it just so happens we're a restaurant.
Yeah.
Like that's really, but it's really about we're all in it together. So it like could go that way. Fine. I think it's more interesting to have a platonic relationship that is charismatic.
Yes.
And like it crackles.
Yes.
And it's a caring one, because those exist, especially at work. Like there's people that you vibe with at work and they can be like your gender identity or not. It's like, but it's at work. Like as long as you're always in that mindset. And I think like Carmi is like in that mindset at work.
Yeah. Maybe
constantly. You know what I mean? Like especially, and then she seems to be too. Like both characters seem that way. It's like, it'd be kind of weird if it just went that way. Now, maybe things start to change for some reason and it makes sense. But like right now, if it just is like a hard cut, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, no, I hope not.
Because it's also a little boring, because that's just like it's like,
it's too expected. It's too, no, come on. It's just like, it's also so cliche.
And the show, it's like, the show's also not really trying to
no
play on a trope all that much. I guess it might be like playing on like the angry chef trope, but he's also only a little angry sometimes. And also, speaking of chef shows, Danny, Boiling Point, the movie that's a one-er take chef movie.
Yes.
Now has a TV show, I believe. I haven't seen it, but apparently it's supposed to be very good, and I think they keep like long takes as part of the idea of it. But you know what? Chef shows are fun because kitchens are visually interesting.
And
like, you know what I mean? Like that's why we're so obsessed with it. They look cool. It all looks cool.
Yeah, when they're like in the zone and like cooking and doing stuff and it's chaotic, those are some of the best episodes. But yeah, I'm excited.
And
for
even
that.
when
I'm
they're
excited
like,
for that.
And it's like it looks so much cooler, like in the sense of temperature, than it actually is in real life.
Yeah.
Like because they're not. It's not everyone flop sweating, which is what I think real kitchens are.
And it's not all just a bunch of Hollywood actors basically acting, all looking very good.
Some would say it's often
the
not
opposite.
Hollywood actors.
I'd say the opposite. Welcome to the DMGT podcast. I am your host, Danny.
Yeah, and I'm Spencer. I mean, Danny, you know, what is it, Xenia Rubinos?
Oh, yeah.
She has that song, Mexican Chef, and it's like her like listing restaurant types, and it's like in the back, it's a Mexican chef. No matter what it is, it's a Mexican chef. It's way better than that, but it is effectively a list of restaurant types and then saying Mexican chefs are probably who's making the food. And it is such an awesome song.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's every time I think about like chefs, when it's like someone being like, it's not, you know, there's not several white people in every kitchen in like Chicago, I would say. Especially not like a beef shop.
No.
Like in most big cities, it's like a lot of like Mexican people are like they're crushing all cuisine.
Even at your Michelin star places, folks.
Oh yeah,
even
that's
at your
the best
Michelin
part.
star places, which is wild. Yeah. It's wild.
Like it's really interesting. It's like I'm interested to see if they show like more of the broader restaurant scene of Chicago.
That would be cool.
I know we're not talking about this, but the Bear's coming out soon, and we love
it. We do love the Bear, and it's in Chicago, and we're in Chicago. So,
but Danny,
Chicago.
What are we actually?
We're talking. This is our last episode of the summer, quote unquote. Emergency pods may or may not happen, as things may or may not happen in the world of.
Yeah, Danny might drag me back in if there's another rap beef.
I probably will. We're talking about some of our favorite things of the year so far, kind of just like a mid-year check-in of albums and video games. It hasn't been quite as intense as last year, I feel, but still some fun things to talk about there. We're going to be hitting a little bit on, speaking of music and top things and lists, Apple did their whole best 100 albums of all time, which, man... We'll get into lots going on there, why they do it this way. It's also a hard thing to do that I think you have thoughts on, but that's okay. And then the State of Play just happened, and it was boring, to say the least, but we'll explain why, except for a couple of things that I'm like, I might check that out when that's there. But let's start off with... I think let's start off with games, because we've been a little game light, actually, I'd say. So we can get into some details about some of our favorite stuff, because I think a lot of games, a decent amount of games have come out this year, a couple of them with some decent hype, but I don't know if anything's lived up to like the caliber of big heavy hitters we got last year yet. But that's okay.
Yeah, the last year was a special year. It's like, you know, it's like one of those movie years. 1999 is like widely considered like, oh man, what a year to be in movies. And we had one of those last years for video games. So like this year, it's like, it's kind of not going to happen. Like this year is like the year that Crash wins the Oscar. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's a good year for catching up on your backlog though, for sure.
Yeah. But it's like, I mean, I really hope something better than the Crash equivalent wins. But like, it could be like a movie. They're just like, I don't know, this one. We all went this one.
Yeah. It'll be fun.
You know, my computer may be exploding, Danny.
Oh boy, that's okay.
She's struggling today.
Yeah, your feed is choppy, to say the least.
Well, you know, it's like an Intel i5 or something. I mean, it's like it's old.
We gotta get you a fresh one. We gotta get you a fresh one. But that said, Why don't you start with your favorite, games, some highlight games that you'd say like leading the way or have made some impression on you so far this year?
Yeah. I think like two games have really taken it for me so far this year. The first one being Prince of Persia.
I love to hear that. That's cool.
The what is it? The Lost Legacy,
Crown.
the Lost Crown.
Yeah.
It is a really, really good game. I'm almost completely finished with it. Like I think I have like one more thing to do, but I was kind of just like taking a little rest on it. Because I am like, I think the story isn't as strong as the gameplay. So like as the story is like wrapping up, I'm like, all right, let's keep going.
Yeah.
Boss fight. All right, we got it. That's like my one critique of it. But like game moment to moment gameplay, whoo, Danny, you're gonna love it. Like just definitely buy it when it's on sale next. Like it's really, really fun. And it made me interested to go, oh, what's this other Prince of Persia roguelike gonna be that's coming out soon too? Because I'm like, that's so weird that two kind of similar games for the same property in the sense of like they're both kind of roguelike-y.
Yeah.
Or like, I guess not, this is like a Metroidvania more so. Not a roguelike at all, but it's like, combat stuff with Prince of Persia, probably time mechanics of some sort. But it's really fun. I like, we didn't really, when it came out, I don't think a lot of people started to play it.
Yeah.
Or played it. Because it kind of came out of nowhere feeling, but it's really, really good. I've been having a great time. It's definitely like up there. It's there for me right now.
Nice.
It's like in that top tier of games I've played so far this year.
Hell yeah. Very similar to me, and I am eventually going to play that. That's for sure. It's gameplay wise, it looks like it hits all the stuff that I love about a platformer Metroidvania. But along those lines, Animal Well. I have I finally got around to it, and I was like, I get it. I get why all these reviews were up there, and I'm like, this has been so refreshing to get like this level of feeling on a game that happens to be like an indie smaller title, because it's tight.
And speaking of Chicago, shout out developer from Chicago, Billy Basso. We don't know him, but that's awesome. It's a Chicago day, folks.
It's a Chicago day, baby. And yeah, man, this game fucks, man. It is so good. The stylized art with the scan lines, I think, looks really cool. Usually in a lot of games, I remove it because I'm like, it's not really working as well without like a proper CRT. This one, I think I don't know what maybe it's just like the art style and the design of the pixels and everything, but it works really well. The traverso and the platforming is super tight. The controls are super tight, which is funny because there's no combat. Technically, there's no actual combat that your character does throughout the entire game. I technically beat like the main story already, and I'm like working on completing all the secret puzzles and stuff. God damn, some of those puzzles are tricky, but they're super satisfying to figure out. And once you do, it's like, oh damn it, how did I not see that earlier? So it's doing a lot for me there. It makes me want to like find all the little. It's super satisfying to explore and go back to other rooms and be like, oh shoot, this item like actually uncovers like a hidden area in this thing, and you got like an extra egg or an extra collectible or whatever. It just works really well. I think it's my favorite game of the year so far. I'm starting off there.
Yeah. I feel like, of course it is. It feels like a game that like we would both like. And I started playing it too. And I was like, oh yeah, instantly.
Yep.
Like you're like instantly like you start and you're like, yeah, okay.
This is gonna,
So this is really, really gonna be good.
Want,
and it's interesting and it sounds cool, looks cool, plays interesting. I'd also say, like sometimes platforming has like preciseness, but the preciseness doesn't feel like it has weight.
Right.
It's almost like you can manipulate it to be wherever you want it to be because you have a lot of leeway in the movement.
Yeah.
Right? Like yeah, there's those types of games where it's like platforming is definitely part of it, but it's not. It is a good platformer, but it's not only that.
Yeah.
But I think the weight of your thing, whatever it is very much like, oh, that's what makes the platforming interesting because you fall quick.
Yes.
Your arc is not long. And like you have, and that makes you instantly have to think about things as like, oh, instead of like jumping, it's like, oh, what if there's one little crevice higher I can go to get this jump? But now, oh, there's this thing chasing me that's scary. Can I hit this quickly because I'm not that agile? And it's like that really satisfying type of like, almost like Celeste.
Yeah,
in the sense of the weight of it. Like not saying like the Celeste's freedom, I feel like, at least from the start, is more than Animal Well.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it does have that weightiness of like, you're going to sink if you don't. Like there's the momentum only takes you so far.
It's the it's basically always what I'm referring to. I think when I say like tight mechanics and tight controls, that's usually what I mean, where it's like there's some level of pixel precision on like certain areas, but not on everything, and not so much that it's like, yeah, if you miss the jump by like that 1 pixel, you're screwed. Like there's a little bit of a wiggle room, even though some sections do get quite challenging. But yeah, man, like the movement feels good. I love just like running around with you can unlock a yo-yo. I don't know if you've gotten to the yo-yo part yet, but
I have not.
It's just so fun to swing that yo-yo around. It's great. It's a fun yo-yo mechanic. And then I saw a tweet from the guy Billy Basso on his Twitter account. He's like, "Yeah, I was obsessed with yo-yos as a kid, so I put a yo-yo in the game." And I'm like,
I mean, honestly,
those are the best reasons.
Those
are the best reasons.
Like, I love a yo-yo. Scholastic bookstore,
book
school, book day, where it's like you could always, for a while, you could find yo-yos, pogs. It was basically like, honestly, I should have stolen stuff as a child because that would have been sick. Yeah, no, Animal Well is great.
So good. So good.
What do you think about, like, where does this put for you, like, the idea of big mode? Because we did talk about it when it was announced, and we were kind of like, I don't know if this announcement felt good to us. We were about it. I think the internet was generally
the internet was like, it came across, I think, a little bit of it came across a little like, I know good video games, no one else knows, like, I'm video the best games, so I'm only gonna publish good ones. And I think it was a little tongue-in-cheek, that, looking back on it now. But it's it certainly helps Video Game Donkey's case on like having an eye and like knowing which projects to like fund and and back.
I think as a publisher, that's a very different thing than a
100%
studio. And it's like, a really good thing to have for a publisher is someone who has a very specific affinity for games and then money to then publish a game. And
I have a feeling and
that's like what he has. Like, it's like, and the first one is, it's a down the middle dunk.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. This is like a classic, like, hey, play this game. This is actually a good game. You Grand Theft Auto nerds. But it's, man, he nailed the choice for this one. Obviously, like, I think to me it's potentially it's maybe very similar to like a producer type credit on a track, or like in an album where like
he's like DJ Khaled is what you're saying.
Maybe a little bit closer to like a Rick Rubin, where it's like, I don't do shit. I just say, hey, I don't like how this sounds here. Make that tweak there, and then I'm leaving.
I just have good taste. Is basically what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like what a publisher is trying to be. Like A24,
right.
That's their whole thing, was they didn't make a movie for like their first 10 movies or something. Like, they didn't produce their own movie. They just bought movies strategically and then I think I feel like they maybe color graded them specifically because they do have a palette, but they didn't technically make them, which is, I think, always an interesting thing. Because you're like, they have such a specific style, and if like, Big Mode is taking that. I think that's an interesting first one.
It's
because I'm like, I wonder what the
it's
second
a high
one
bar
is.
to set.
Like now
It's
I'm
a
very
high bar to
interested.
set. Like if this came out and it's like,
it's an
yeah,
indie game
a
of the year
100%.
contender, and it
I think
now
it's a
is
solid game of the year contender. It's not
And
going to win,
and
but I
I'll
do think
say-
it's probably a nominee this year.
for my current game of the year, and also an indie.
Oh, hell
title,
yes. Hell
Balatro.
yeah.
So those are, I mean, I think Animal Well Balatro are the best games that have come out this year. I can't stop playing it in a way that doesn't feel as scary as some other games that I've got obsessed with. Because I would say it's an extremely relaxing game to play. It's much more relaxing than Slay the Spire that I think it's getting compared to a lot. I think Slay the Spire like really feels rude sometimes. And
a little mean.
While there is that streak in this deck builder as well, it's a roguelike deck builder, and it's really just based on poker hands and manipulating poker hands and powering up in different ways and balancing them, blending them. It's building a deck, right? The thing that I really like about it is like there is a lot of ways you can put things together to create something more effective.
Yeah.
And then every time you figure something out, you can also increase something else to make it harder. And there's a really high, like there's 10 levels of difficulty, and I haven't beaten the final level of difficulty. But then there's also an entirely separate, like 200 challenges that are all specific deck scenarios and like power-up scenarios where it's like, this is going to help you and screw you in a certain way. And this is like, if you win, that's a challenge, and there's like 120 of those. There's like 200 jokers or whatever. There's like 80 different ways to combine them. So it's like this huge, huge sprawling thing. And then it's also just like mid-game, I'll be like, all right, I'll just like chill. And then you come back to it, and it's not like a obsessive thing. But I'm also like, if I'm not doing nothing, I'd rather be doing this than looking at my phone.
Yeah.
Like this is better than scrolling on Instagram, and I'm filling the same time. It's like a game just to fill that kind of time.
I do love those where you can like kind of easily get in and out. Animal Well hasn't quite done that for me, just because like you get sucked in and
you have to think. You have to think
a
too
lot,
much.
So
yeah,
it's hard to like
remember where stuff is,
put it
and
down or quickly pick it up. But I do
one
like
is
that
like
about
every like round. You're like talking like you can get done in as little as 10 minutes per round. It can go longer if you play every hand, but there's also like a bunch of incentives to just like play recklessly. It's really fun. Again, like it's funny. They actually have tied Metacritic score right now. Both these two games, they're like of this year, they are 2 and 3.
Wow.
Now, Danny, I have a question for you. The number one for 2024 on Metacritic, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. What do you think?
It's a little high.
Is it there for you?
High.
It shouldn't be number one.
Number one. I understand why it's number one. It's not number one for me. I still haven't beaten it because I just have not really been super interested in getting back in. I'm going to. But like after this was before Helldivers, this was before Helldivers. After Dragon's Dogma, rather, and then like a little bit of a break, and I kind of just like I need to just like not think about video games hard. So I started playing a lot of MLB over last month.
That is your
that's
classic,
like my fallback.
Turn your brain off.
That's
game.
like my fallback. Like I need just turn my brain off. Right. It's just it's a really pretty game. It's a very big game. It's very polished. It has all the markings of like what a good AAA game should be, but almost as a result of that, and maybe it's like just my own thing. It just feels a little unoriginal. And this is as someone who has played.
Some would say it's a remake.
Yeah. But like I'm saying, like as far as like incorporating all like different modern mechanics and all of that, it's like, okay, you're not really doing anything new here. You're just grabbing all the formulas that have already worked, and slapping it into the Final Fantasy VII world, which again, on paper, cool. Sign me up. Most people like I'm into that. And I am into that, just not into it to that this is the top rated game of the year degree. And I felt this way about the original, the first part of the remake when that came out a few years ago. I was like, I like this game. Don't get me wrong. I like this game. But the way that it's getting raved is not consolidating with how my actual experience playing with it is.
I think
if it came in like at like a solid 88, I'd be like, yeah, that feels fair.
They're games that are getting a intense nostalgia
for sure, 100%.
Like all of these particular remakes, I feel like, are getting that when they work. You know what I mean? Like you know, the Capcom. We could talk more about it when we get to State of Play, but like the Capcom remake factory. Where it's like, this game will probably sell well, and probably a lot of people will like it because you're taking something that already worked and just like you're applying a formula and it's working. There was nothing wrong with that. But yeah, it's like kind of again, this is like the year after 1999. Like year, you know, this is one of those.
I think part of it is that because, and I'm working on a script for a YouTube video that 2023 ruined video games for me. This year so far, and Animal Well has kind of like brought me back to life on the gaming side of it, a bit.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's definitely high. Dragon's Dogma 2, I have very much enjoyed. I would have said it was probably like almost by default the my game of the year leader, before playing any of these other games.
I mean, it was
just because it's like a good game. It's a good game, a big game.
Yeah.
A lot of quirkiness, but in a fun way. I think towards the end of the game, it lost a little bit of steam for me, but not big enough fall off that like I didn't want to finish it or anything like that. So I still think it's a very good game. It's obviously going to be a nominee for Game of the Year. And then I haven't played like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, and then Tekken 8 is also sitting at a 90.
Yep.
And then a bunch of remakes. You got out. You know, go for it. Sorry,
but shout out my final one, Helldivers 2. Not a game I've continued to play that much because honestly, my biggest gripe with it is it's not very solo friendly.
Correct. Yes.
Like because I'm like it's a game that you could totally play solo, like The Division, and just like grind out and like be a very click in click out game because I do think it's fun that there's like the campaign lord guy that's like changing and ruining everyone's
that's great.
time. And like I still check in on it because it's funny.
It is funny. It is fun. I do like that.
So I think that one is such an interesting success of a game to kind of happen out of nowhere.
Yeah. I'm with you there on how
it's like it's the one up there. I mean like I'm almost glad it didn't come as a free-to-play game because I feel like free-to-play games are basically marked for death no matter what they are at this point, and like we'll talk about that in the State of Play. But I really just I appreciate that it's just like no, it's Starship Troopers, but it's, you know, legally it's not though.
Right
but like we're having a good time. We're all having a good time, right? We're good.
Chill. We're all chill. Great.
We just want to now, but the studio has now been like, we want to really like be players now. Like we want to go for shit. Like they've kind of said like, we want to take Helldivers 2 success and like do something big. Like they want to shoot their shot. What it sounds like, which is cool. Fun because this one seems like it already was because it was their first 3D game.
Yeah, the CEO just stepped down from being CEO to focus exclusively. He's like, I brought in a CEO person that's like wants to be the business person that a CEO needs to be.
So you can get back as like creative director.
So you can get back to creative directing. I'm like, that's cool. And I feel like that's in a year where it's just been layoffs and studio closures galore as well. I think we have to bring that up too. In a year where that's happened, it's nice to hear like, hey man, they're serious about, you know, making good games.
Now, could I speak to the new CEO really quick, just as a sidebar?
Drop some knowledge.
Hey, new CEO of Helldivers 2 Studio. I know it's going to be a little tough but you kind of have a bit of an overpaid creative director. So business wise, it's gonna be a little bit of a leadership struggle because he was the CEO and kind of did good there, but it good in a certain way,
Oh,
and if we want to really scale this up,
oh, geez.
I think the best thing to do, and don't think about it too hard, let's get rid of all the people that made the game first, and then also people who cared about making the game. Like, get rid of all those people, and we'll just swap people in. Helldivers 3. What if we make a Gears of War? Think about it. Okay.
Jesus Christ.
All right. That's the end of my message.
The DMGT does not view Spencer, our employee Spencer's views. His views are his own, and while we respect his right to express his
read
views,
that was an email
DMGT
that I didn't say that.
Back.
I don't know if you know this, but everything I've said since March of last year has been AI.
It's true. It's just ChatGPT responding to me.
Ever since it happened, I've really optimized ChatGPT for every conversation I'd ever need to have with you. And I'm not here.
I mean, damn.
No.
It's working really well.
Don't think about it too hard.
So if that's true, that must mean that we aren't in a simulation.
Well, or it's a multiple layer simulation, which is honestly probably what it could be. The matrix of the matrix of the matrix.
At that point, it's like, oh God.
Oh yeah.
Spencer, let's pivot to music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, there's a couple of stuff that I was like, you put me on the spot last week, and I was like, oh shoot, I don't remember what's been good so far for me. And there have been a few things here and there, but I'll let you start. Mm-hmm. I'll let you start with some of your top albums so far this year.
I mean, we don't need to get too much into it. This is a pretty
light,
consistent response to me for the last couple of years. Cowboy Carter, Beyonce, obviously up there. For me, really good. I don't listen to it as much as Renaissance, I would say for sure. But every time I'm listening to it, whenever I hear it, it's very similar to Renaissance where like as it infects everything, because Renaissance kind of started to show up everywhere.
Yeah.
Over that like summer, I feel like Cowboy Carter has been doing that more, plenty already, and I feel like it'll continue on. But yeah, I mean, I'm into it. Fun stuff.
Yeah, I specifically
Artists
the second
doing
half
stuff that they seem to be having a good time. Second half,
specifically the second half of that album is
stronger
really
half.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's probably one of mine.
That's a good one. Cowboy Carter is good. I mean, we talked about it a little bit last week, or quite a bit last week already. But Hit Me Hard and Soft, Billie Eilish. That's my front runner right now. Not quite as highly raved across the board critically, but still pretty good. Like.
Yeah,
still solid. I just really appreciate a tight and concise and like polished piece of work that a 10-track 43-minute album is. And I'm going to beat that horse over and over again because it gives you a cohesive experience sonically, lyrically, thematically, vocally. It all is working with each other and within itself. It's not perfect, I wouldn't say, but it's still super good. And I think a lot of the production is really interesting. It's giving me a lot of like the little earworms, that little Frisian stuff, and in moments. I think there are specific moments in that album that really hit high. Not consistently across the board, I'd say, but enough that I'm like, yeah, no, this is still a top one for me. And I'm just waiting for her and Taylor to drop the diss tracks on each other. And that's what I'll bring you back for over the summer.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's really good.
So totally agree. I think my last two. Yeah, I'm gonna say my last two albums so far, and this is kind of because this is just how the year has gone for me music wise. I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks. Like I've ripped through like a whole trilogy in the last like 2 months.
Wow,
that's like long. They're like long books. So
Cool.
I've been like really filling most of my listening time with that. Like even not even really doing a ton of podcasts. So I would say it's Red Mars. That's the trilogy I'm reading. It's hard sci-fi about terraforming or not terraforming Mars and what that does to humanity, as well as a lot about what happens in a society of where longevity treatments become commonplace and people start living an indefinite amount of time.
Yeah.
Very fun hard sci-fi. So that would be my album of the year so far. The Red Mars trilogy. But in terms of, there's always a few of my indie leading ladies every year because I have enough of them that I love. Where I got two from some of my favorites, which is Waxahachie released
Gotta have the
her album
Waxahachie in there. Yeah.
Tiger Blood. It's great. Waxahachie kicks ass all the way. Shout out to my kind of friend, other Spencer Tweedy, who drums on the album, a Chicago boy.
Hell yeah. Chicago on top,
So,
baby. Let's go.
sorry, touring musician with them. I got to see the Waxahachie show with some folks. Well, you didn't, but
Yeah, I was supposed to be there. Yeah.
So it's really, really great. Like continuing, like very interestingly, sometimes melancholy, sometimes very hopeful, sometimes both, sometimes different feelings. Beautiful production, a beautiful voice, beautiful harmonies, beautiful instrumentation. It's just like really good fucking music that I feel like almost anyone could probably find something about it they could vibe with. It's just like music that sounds nice.
Yeah.
And it's like her second in a row of like nailing that, so I'm really into it. And then Maggie Rogers released her third album, Don't Forget Me, and I actually kind of forgot to listen to it in April when it came out. Came out like middle of April. I really love Maggie Rogers. Her last album, oh man, that has some incredible songs on it. Horses is one of the best songs of the last 5 years. My Friends, or I Have Friends, one of those two. That's a great fucking song. And then this new one, like, haven't listened to it as much because obviously it's new, and I just kind of found it in like mid-May, so I was about a month late on it.
Yeah.
Dude, she's dope. Like, she's real cool, and like where she's going with what she's doing, like from kind of being like a Pharrell find, right? Like that video that hit all those years ago, and like being more of a like indie electro pop, and then now her her two albums after her first one are really like more like no, I'm like a musician, singer songwriter. Which I think is so cool because like I was like, you also were nailing that other thing. You know what I mean? Like you were not bad at like vibing out in like, kind of a Lana Del Rey atmosphere. Right. So I really like it. I don't know if it's as good as Surrender. I just haven't listened to it enough, not because I don't think it is, but like Surrender is probably like one of my most listened to albums of 2022 for sure. So
you did love.
We'll see when it gets there at the end of the year.
Those are good picks. I'll also give you a toss two at you. Nothing intense. For me, Dark Times by Vince Staples that just dropped last week.
Haven't gotten around to it
is
yet.
Really good. I think it's some of his best work. I'd say he's not going as hard. But I think the songwriting and the lyricism and like the beats and the production and everything just works really well. Feels very like, you know what, he's just doing his thing. It's a little dark, but in a sonically pleasing way. Just it's hitting like all the. I don't think there's like a single trap head in the entire album, which I think is like fun for a hip hop album in 2024. To kind of just like switch it up, kind of stick with like some light West Coast beats, but not like super hard into, like some of the gangster rap instrumentation. So it's a little bit more mellow on that side. Really cool. I think what's the last track on that album is I think one of my favorites of his. No, not the last one. Radio. Radio, I highly recommend. It's really cool. I think it's one of his better songs for sure. It's going to be looping for me. And then on the other hand, Infinite Void by a band called With Sales Ahead. We've briefly talked about them on the pod before. A little rough around the edges, but that's okay for a smaller band. I think that's kind of what I want from my post pop punk kind of slight swinges of metalcore in there, kind of nerdy topics and contents, but still works really well. You have a female vocalist, which I think is always interesting for this type of music, who can also like give you a really good growl in a lot of these tracks, which is still impressive every time, no matter who's doing it. I'm always like, this is impressive. I think I tried learning once like 10 years ago, and I was like, this is ruining my voice. So I can't do it. But it's nice. The guitar work is really cool.
All of us Midwest emo kids have been there.
Yeah. So you get it. And they're really cool. They're touring right now, but they don't have a Chicago stop, and I was really disappointed about that. So hopefully they do another. It's during that phase where they're like, it's like they have a month of a tour, month and a half, and they're hitting some major cities, but some slightly smaller cities. So it's like I'm hoping that they can catch like a wave here, and then
they might swing around somewhere. Yeah. Like they're gonna go through a lot of touring the next 2 years. Like
for sure.
So, and if you don't see them, it might be because hasn't Riot Fest not been announced fully?
That's also true. That's also true. It's possible. It's possible they get a
because they
Riot
can't
Fest
talk about shows in the Chicago area for like 6 months before, and then it has to be like after Riot Fest ends, they can announce shows that are in like the 6 months after. So
yeah, it could be.
Because they feel like they should be at Riot.
They for sure. I feel like they should totally be. If they're at a smaller, earlier in the day stage, even better for me, man. We can get closer and rock out and stuff. So yeah, those two albums are really fun for me, and those are really the three big ones that I'm coming back to this year, new music wise. Besides, like, all the.
I will say, like,
rappy.
There hasn't been that much like rap. Like
the Future album was solid. The Future album was solid.
Yeah. Not saying it. Not saying the Future album is not. I'm just saying like nothing's really like grabbed me and said sit down and listen to this a ton.
Yeah, no.
And usually by this point of the year, there's like
there's something. There's always something. And don't worry though, Eminem's here to save the day with his Houdini. Did you see that cover art for that?
Does he not know that
it looks really bad?
Dula Peep?
It's gonna be so
released a single called Houdini.
It's he's dropping it tonight.
Yeah.
I
saw a video that said, "Hey, wait, did Eminem basically say he's retiring in this interview?" And I didn't look at the article, but in my head I said, "I hope so." Because also, like, honestly, let your beard go the normal color it is.
Stop dyeing the beard.
You're not fooling anybody, Eminem. You're not fooling anyone, Eminem. Like you're in your late 40s, right? Like somewhere,
something like that.
Dude, it looks
51. Like, he's 51,
dude. He looks great for 51, but he looks like an absolute idiot with his dyed fucking facial hair.
I gotta show you this before we get off because it's you're going to die. I can't wait to see your reaction here. I'm gonna send it over. Houdini. You're never in a million years gonna guess what this cover art looks like. I'm so excited to show you this.
We're getting.
Oh, I grabbed this from Eminem News.
Yes, perfect. Houdini snippet.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh, it's the biggest and most trusted source of Eminem, which is good. Thank you for not sending an X link because you now can't see X links unless you are logged into X.
It's so stupid.
So I will never. Just so you know, if anybody sends me an X link, I ain't looking at it.
I'm basically at the end of my rope with X, Twitter, formerly Twitter.
No, you know what? Honestly, I could have guessed this. It would have taken me like 20 to 30, but I feel like because it's like Eminem show, like curtain call, like we have like
you got the curtains.
He's always been kind of like the idea of like a show. He's here for his last trick. The idea that Houdini dies. You know, I hope he stops. I hope he stops. Because it's just mostly the beard stuff and like the dye job. It like he feels like he needs to do that. And I would respect the album he was releasing by 200% if he was letting himself just like look normal. Because he looked weird at his daughter's wedding. Yeah, and it's only because of the dye job. Because he seemingly was being